You ever wonder what happens when an HOA picks a fight with the wrong person? Not just a complaint letter or a parking fine. I'm talking about a full-on power grab, carried out with clipboards, legal threats, and pure arrogance. This story starts where it shouldn't have started at all, on land that never belonged to them. A man named Marcus Kellerman, a quiet mechanic who inherited his grandmother's farmhouse, wanted nothing more than peace and a place to work. But peace doesn't last long when someone like Delilah Hutchcraft, president of the Willowbrook Estates HOA, decides your land fits her vision of community order. She showed up at his door demanding $3,200 in fees for a neighborhood. He never joined, claiming county. Rezoning had magically drafted his property into their rulebook. When Marcus refused, things turned ugly fast. Fake enforcement visits, bogus paperwork, and threats of liens, all from an HOA that didn't even legally control his ground. What Delilah didn't know was that Marcus's grandmother kept everything. Deeds, maps and surveys that told a different story. A story proving that the very office where she ran her little kingdom might actually be sitting on his land. So when you hear what came next, the cameras, the fraud unit, the arrests, remember it all started with one man, one property line, and one HOA president who picked the wrong driveway to walk up. Marcus Kellerman, 52, stands on land his family has kept since 1945, a 3.2-acre parcel in Millbrook County with a 1940s stone house, a weathered barn, and a workshop where he fixes engines. No pool, no clubhouse, just legacy ground, maintained the same way for decades. 5 years earlier, adjoining fields became Willowbrook Estates. 200 look-alike houses, trimmed hedges matching mailboxes and an HOA running pools, landscaping contracts and a community center. The subdivision thrived inside its borders. The question was whether those borders ever touched Marcus. One morning, the HOA president, Delilah Hutchcraft, arrived with a clipboard and confidence. She said county rezoning automatically folded his legacy parcel into Willowbrook. She requested $3,200 and immediate compliance. Mow to HOA height. Hide tools and parts, remove the commercial vehicle parked by the shop, and treat the 1960 barn as an unapproved structure. Marcus wiped his hands, produced his deed, and said he had never joined any association. Delilah warned of a lien within 30 days, and that night the kitchen table disappeared under records, stamped deeds, surveys, tax bills, easement notes, and the HOA's incorporation filings. The paperwork told a calmer story. Nothing in writing annexed his tract, and one map, tight lines, clean bearings, showed a southern boundary running farther than expected, possibly beneath the HOA's own office building. Marcus opened a notebook and wrote the case in 3 questions. Can an HOA bind a non-member who never signed? Can it lien land never annexed by recorded instrument? And when subdivision plats conflict with older evidence, do certified surveys still govern? He underlined the last line twice, closed the folder, and set tomorrow's plan. Verify the boundary, verify the authority, and document everything. 2 days after Marcus refused to pay the so-called HOA dues, trouble rolled up his driveway disguised as authority, a white pickup, magnetic decals that said county code, enforcement, and 2 men in matching blue polos stepped out with clipboards and plastic badges that glinted just enough to look real. If you didn't know what real looked like, "Sir, we're here about multiple violations," one announced, voice rehearsed, tone official. Marcus wiped his hands on a rag, studying the badges closer. They looked like something printed at an office supply store. His late wife had worked for the county assessor's office. He'd seen authentic IDs before. These weren't them. When he asked for departmental credentials, the 2 exchanged nervous glances. Their citations listed commercial activity and unpermitted structures. Marcus pretended to cooperate long enough to snap photos and note the license plate. 20 minutes later, he was on the phone with the county clerk. Environmental and zoning enforcement? the clerk repeated. Sir, we don't even have that department. That single sentence turned suspicion into confirmation. They were fake. Marcus headed straight to the sheriff's office, photos in hand. Deputy Martinez ran the plate, registered to Willowbrook Property Management, LLC, the same address as the HOA office. Martinez leaned back, eyebrows raised. You're dealing with impersonation, Mr. Kellerman. That's a felony. Document everything. So Marcus installed cameras, 4 of them, each lens guarding a piece of his driveway, workshop, front porch, and back gate. Meanwhile, Delilah launched a new campaign online, warning neighbors about a non-compliant property owner. At the next HOA meeting, Marcus showed up uninvited, holding historical photos and deeds. By the time he finished speaking, half the room looked at him differently. No longer as the villain in Delilah's story, but the neighbor standing on ground that was rightfully his. After the fake citations came a formal cease and desist letter accusing Marcus Kellerman of interfering with HOA operations. Instead of panicking, he hired property rights attorney David Blackwood and ordered a modern GPS survey from Peterson Land Surveying. When the crew finished, the results stunned him. His southern boundary extended 30 feet farther than old maps showed, putting half the HOA office squarely on his land. Blackwood explained the implications: no HOA authority over a non-member, and a potential trespass claim for years of unauthorized use. Hours later, Delilah Hutchcraft appeared again, blocking his driveway and ordering a crew to remove his mailbox for aesthetic violations. The postal supervisor confirmed such interference was federal offense. Marcus replaced it with a heavy cast-iron box engraved Kellerman 1945. That same day, Deputy Martinez noted county planners were already questioning permits for the HOA office. Comparing surveys, deeds, and tax maps, Marcus realized the association's headquarters, Delilah's power base, stood on stolen ground. What began as a billing dispute was fast becoming a property rights case with criminal overtones. Days after the mailbox confrontation, Marcus woke to find slashed tires and paint over his security lenses. But his hidden cameras told the story. Delilah Hutchcraft directing 2 men during the vandalism. His insurance adjuster mentioned similar claims among other HOA-targeted homeowners, a pattern suggesting fraud. While investigators reviewed footage, Delilah doubled down, posting online warnings about a dangerous mechanic and hosting an emergency safety meeting. Then his power was cut after false reports of illegal wiring. The utility confirmed payments were current and restored service. Minutes later, Detective Williams from the County Fraud Unit called. Willowbrook Property Management was under investigation for harassment and insurance claim schemes. That evening, HOA Treasurer Jake Morrison met Marcus at a roadside diner, sliding across an envelope of bank statements, payments to vendors who never worked, landscaping bills for projects that never existed, and withdrawals matching Delilah's personal expenses. The evidence was no longer just about one property line. It pointed to financial theft across an entire neighborhood, and the first cracks in Delilah's empire had finally begun to show. By now, Marcus wasn't just fighting an HOA, he was uncovering an empire built on paper and lies. His attorney, David Blackwood, sat across from him at the kitchen table, papers spread between 2 mugs of black coffee. Marcus, he said, tapping a document, this office building everyone meets in, it doesn't even belong to the HOA. It belongs to Delilah Hutchcraft personally. Through a company called Community Management Solutions, LLC, Delilah had been charging the HOA $4,200 a month in rent for a building illegally planted on Marcus's land. The members' dues were paying her directly, funding her lifestyle while she strutted around as president of a community that didn't even own its own headquarters. Blackwood's next discovery was worse. County tax records showed the office parcel had never been legally separated from Marcus's 3.2 acres. That meant he'd been unknowingly paying property tax for a building that wasn't his, while Delilah avoided hers entirely. A quiet, calculated form of tax evasion dressed up as community management. The deeper they looked, the uglier it got. County Auditor Patricia Polson confirmed the irregularities. Unpaid taxes, falsified parcel lines, and 3 other subdivisions tied to the same management company. "This isn't mismanagement," she told Marcus. "It's organized theft." That night, Marcus sat in his workshop, the hum of an old fluorescent light overhead. He stared at the documents, the survey, the checks, the tax maps, and realized the truth. He could settle quietly, reclaim his land, and walk away. Or he could expose everything and protect his neighbors from years of theft. He looked toward the barn his grandmother built and made his choice. "We're not hiding this," he said. "We're bringing it all to light." Marcus's quiet farmhouse transformed into a war room for justice. The same workbench where he once rebuilt engines was now buried under maps, deeds, and coffee-stained notepads filled with strategy. But this time he wasn't standing alone. Mrs. Patterson, the 78-year-old neighbor who'd lived there since the days of gravel roads and chicken coops, arrived with a cardboard box full of old photographs and handwritten ledgers. "Your grandmother's garden used to stretch right under that office building," she said softly. "I watched them pour the concrete myself." Her testimony would become gold later. Attorney David Blackwood launched a quiet title action, a legal move as strategic as it was devastating. It would force anyone claiming interest in Marcus's land to prove it in court, or lose it forever. No fanfare, no warning to Delilah, just cold official paperwork that would undo her empire silently. Meanwhile, forensic accountant Rebecca Torres dissected years of HOA transactions. What she found mirrored organized fraud, shell companies, inflated invoices, and repeated payments to vendors with the same last names as Delilah's relatives. Marcus coordinated directly with Detective Williams, ensuring every shred of evidence, videos, statements, and receipts was secured beyond reach. The sheriff's office began watching for intimidation attempts. Then came the media angle. Reporter Sarah Polson, known for exposing county corruption, joined the team. She planned a fact-checked expose timed with the upcoming HOA meeting, giving residents their first real look behind Delilah's curtain. Late nights blurred into dawn as the group mapped timelines, checked facts, and packed binders thick with proof. Between the hum of printers and the scratch of pen on paper, one thing was certain: the next HOA meeting wouldn't be a gathering. It would be an ambush of truth. The closer Marcus and his team got to the truth, the more desperate Delilah became. Her first move arrived in another expensive envelope, this one from Henderson and Associates Legal Services. The letter was filled with threats, legal jargon, and a demand for $500,000 in damages for defamation of a community leader. But the return address led to a Mailboxes Plus store in the next county. It wasn't a law firm. It was theater. The kind meant to scare people who didn't know better. Then came something darker. At 3 a.m., Marcus's motion sensor triggered. Hidden cameras caught 3 masked figures digging near his workshop foundation, burying sealed plastic bags marked hazardous material. They slipped away into the night, but the footage caught everything, including the plates on Delilah's SUV idling nearby. When Detective Williams saw the video, he called it what it was: an evidence plant meant to frame you for illegal dumping. But Delilah wasn't finished. She cornered Jake Morrison, the HOA treasurer, threatening to expose a minor permit issue on his home if he didn't stay loyal. The intimidation only pushed him closer to Marcus's side, and then came the moment that sealed her fate. One afternoon, Marcus walked into his living room to find Delilah inside his home, perfume thick in the air, a $50,000 check trembling in her manicured hand. "Take it," she whispered. "End this quietly." What she didn't know was that Marcus's phone was recording every word, including her admission that the building situation could be adjusted. Within hours, his attorney labeled it attempted bribery, his most powerful evidence yet. Delilah had gone from HOA president to criminal on camera. When arrogance fails, desperation takes the wheel. Delilah's next move was to weaponize the courts. She filed for a temporary restraining order, accusing Marcus of stalking, harassment, and intimidation. The goal was simple: flip the narrative before her empire collapsed. In an emergency hearing, her plan fell apart spectacularly. Marcus's attorney, David Blackwood, played the security footage of her breaking into his home, check in hand, trying to buy his silence. The courtroom went dead quiet. The judge not only dismissed the restraining order, but sanctioned Delilah for filing false claims, ordering her to pay Marcus's legal fees on the spot. That embarrassment lit a fuse. Days later, a county inspector arrived, responding to a new complaint that Marcus was running an unlicensed auto repair business. The man took one look around the modest workshop and shook his head. "You're clean, Mr. Kellerman. Someone's wasting everyone's time." That night, anonymous flyers appeared in mailboxes across Willowbrook, Marcus's face printed beside words like dangerous, aggressive, threat to property values. But the tide had already begun to turn. Neighbors were asking questions. Treasurer Jake Morrison started sharing fragments of financial records with other homeowners, confirming what Marcus had said all along. Then came the fire. Just before midnight, cameras captured two figures hurling Molotov cocktails into Marcus's workshop. Flames tore through his tools and benches, but the fireproof safe he'd bolted to the concrete floor protected the most important thing: his evidence. Detective Williams called it what it was: arson to obstruct justice. The threats didn't stop there. Voicemails with distorted voices, one mentioning Marcus's late wife by name. But with every attack, the story spread wider. Local news picked it up, and suddenly, Willowbrook wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a headline about corruption. The night of the Willowbrook community meeting felt electric, like the calm before a thunderstorm. Cars lined both sides of the street. The community center, once Delilah's stage, overflowed with residents clutching folders, cell phones, and questions. Even County Commissioner Williams attended, standing quietly in the back beside Detective Martinez, dressed in plain clothes but ready for anything. Delilah took the podium first, pretending confidence. "Let's keep this meeting civil," she began, voice tight. "Only routine matters tonight." That line didn't last long. From the back row, Marcus rose, holding a thick binder. "Then let's start with the truth." He approached the projector and displayed the certified land survey, every measurement verified by GPS, every signature notarized. The crowd leaned forward as he pointed to the shaded overlay. The HOA office, Delilah's pride, was sitting 30 feet on Kellerman property. A murmur swept through the room. Then he opened the next exhibit: bank statements from the HOA's own accounts. Lines of payments, $4,200 a month, flowing from homeowners' dues straight into Delilah's private company. "That's your money," Marcus said calmly. "Every dollar of it." Delilah's face flushed red. "Lies!" she shouted. "This is slander." But Marcus wasn't done. He played the audio recording, her voice unmistakable. "Take the check, Marcus. We can adjust the building quietly." The room went silent except for the faint hum of the projector fan. Then came the click of handcuffs. Detective Martinez stepped forward, badge in hand. "Delilah Hutchcraft, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, bribery, and obstruction." As she was led out, residents erupted in disbelief, some cheering, others crying. Commissioner Williams stepped to the microphone and promised county-level reform of HOA oversight. For the first time in years, Willowbrook felt like a real community again, united not by rules, but by truth. 6 months later, the storm had finally passed, leaving behind something rare in HOA history: accountability. Delilah Hutchcraft, once untouchable, now stood in a county courtroom wearing prison orange. The verdict was clear: 18 months in federal custody, restitution totaling $247,000, and a permanent ban from any property management role. The woman who once bragged about community order was now learning what real order looked like from the inside. The office building she'd built illegally on Marcus's land became a symbol of renewal. Instead of tearing it down, Marcus made a quiet choice. He donated its use to the newly reformed Willowbrook Association, under one condition: total transparency. That office now hosts legal aid workshops, senior tech classes, and open budget meetings streamed live for every resident. The same space once used to control neighbors had turned into a place that empowered them. Mrs. Patterson's photos and journals became part of a small display in the building's lobby, a tribute to Rose Kellerman and the legacy of the land. The story of the garden, the boundary, and the fight for fairness reminded everyone how one determined man protected 3 generations of work. Operating costs dropped by over 40% after competitive bidding replaced crony contracts. Homeowners who once feared speaking up now chaired committees. Even local schools used the case as a civics lesson in property rights and community ethics. News outlets called it the Kellerman Standard, a roadmap for standing up to HOA corruption. Marcus never sought fame, just fairness. But in the end, his fight did more than reclaim his land. It gave an entire community something priceless: the courage to say no and the proof that truth, when documented, wins. If you believe in fairness, tap like. For more real HOA battles, subscribe and join the fight for accountability. This was Willowbrook versus Kellerman, proof that truth still wins.